like to tell you a little bit about my own microbiome story and how it led to a real awakening about the practice of medicine, or at least how I was practicing medicine. My microbiome story started on March 25th, 2005 at 8 a.m. when I went into labor. And like many women, decided to shave my legs, which has nothing to do with my microbiome story, but this thing that we do not want to go into the hospital with stubbly legs in case, Sports Illustrated SI turns up or something. I had my smooth legs as I went into labor, and 16 hours later, when still no baby, I was told it was time for a C-section. So C-sections, which are now 1 in 3 births in the US, bypass a critical early step in the maturation of the child's immune system, and that is colonization with the mother's vaginal microbes. So that simple act of traveling through the birth canal and swallowing a mouthful of microbes is an incredibly important event. You thought it was a bar mitzvah or the first year of college. It's that event because what we know is that babies born vaginally are colonized with lots of good bacteria, with lactobacillus and all the other sort of desirable species. And C-section babies, like my poor daughter, are colonized with staph and hospital-associated bacteria. Not so great. And not just that, but these benefits continue long after you leave the hospital. So what we see is that babies born vaginally lower rates of asthma and allergy and inflammation compared to C-section babies. So in addition to sort of coming through the zipper across the abdominal wall instead of out through the vajayjay, my daughter received 2 doses of very strong intravenous antibiotics at birth. Not because she was sick, but because I'd had the flu and a fever, and the doctors decided, just in case, let's put her in the neonatal ICU, let's give her some strong antibiotics. And at the time, I thought this was great. I thought, oh, these doctors are so careful, and they're giving her antibiotics just in case. They're really on top of it. When my daughter Sydney was about 6 months old, she developed a fever and a sore throat, and we had the first of what would be many, 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 many visits to the pediatrician. And each month, she just seemed to get sicker and sicker, and the doctor would open the chart and say, okay, well, what was she on last time? We'll give her this time. What really began to concern me was that nobody seemed to be paying attention to the amount of antibiotics she had been receiving. Each month, it was just a different antibiotic. I hadn't yet had my personal awakening, if you will. I still wholeheartedly believed in the superiority of modern medicine, the omniscience of the doctor, and the seductive simplicity that illness equals antibiotics. But does it? So 2/3 of all visits to the doctor for respiratory tract infections result in a prescription being written for an antibiotic. Of those visits, 80% of them do not even come close to meeting the CDC guidelines for requiring an antibiotic. The majority of ear infections in children are viral, but they are still prescribed antibiotics, which not only do nothing to hasten the recovery, but they increase the risk of side effects of things like rashes and diarrhea. So as this cycle of illness and antibiotics and doctor visits continued, something happened one day that really made me rethink my whole approach and what I was subjecting my child to. My daughter had a cough and a cold, and we were getting ready to travel, and my husband said, I'm going to take her to the doctor. And I said, well, I'm not going, I'm boycotting. They walked in the door from the doctor's visit with my daughter carrying a nebulizer machine for asthma, with stickers, of course, and 4 prescriptions, an antibiotic, a steroid, an antihistamine, and a bronchodilator. I went to my little filing area. I'm an obsessive filer, and I pulled out the wad of pharmacy stubs. 15 rounds of antibiotics and 50 visits to the doctor, more than I had had in my entire life, and she was not yet in kindergarten. And that's when I said, I'm done. I said, there's got to be some other way to do this. And so we just stopped going to the doctor. Now, I am not advocating in any way that you stop going to the doctor. Say that again. Nor am I advocating that you stop taking your child to the doctor. But I am advocating that you become that kind of patient, the kind who asks the pointed, uncomfortable questions, like whether 15 rounds of antibiotics in a toddler is a good idea, or whether there are alternatives, or what if you just did nothing and toughed it out. I am absolutely advocating that. So the fascinating thing, and probably not surprising to all of you, is that as we stopped going to the doctor and she stopped taking antibiotics, she actually got better. In the beginning, she was still pretty sick. Her good gut bacteria had been so depleted by the onslaught of antibiotics from birth that in the beginning, she had trouble fighting even a simple viral infection. But as she got stronger and her gut bacteria improved and I got more kale into her, she got healthier. And today, she is a healthy 9-year-old who definitely eats more kale than her demographic, but probably eats exactly the same amount of cookies. So there you go.